Washington state Democrats continue to go hard after the Second Amendment rights of Washington state citizens. Today, I'm going to tell you about yet another anti-2A bill in Washington state. Hey everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington, and I'm back again with another bill of the day. Now, I'm stepping out of my typical wheelhouse on bills of the day. Usually speaking of bills, my good buddy Bill Kirk over at Washington Gun Law, I let him do the videos on all of the so-called gun control bills. But he is at SHOT Show this week, and this bill got dropped last night, and I wanted to tell you about it. Particularly, I want to show you how it plays with some of the other so-called gun control bills that are floating around in Olympia this 2025 session. So this is House Bill 1405. The whole goal of this bill is to enhance public safety by requiring financial responsibility for purchasing, possessing, and operating a firearm or a firearm range in the state of Washington. And so this bill would require individuals to have firearm liability insurance, a liability bond, self-insurance, or a certificate of deposit of at least $25,000 per firearm to cover accidental or unintended discharge resulting in injury, death, or property damage. The bill also requires that a firearm range would have a general liability policy with at least $1 million of coverage per incident. Now, the certificate of deposit would be held by Washington's Department of Licensing. So what I'm picking up from this bill, and it'll be interesting to see what Bill Kirk over at Washington Gun Law says about this from a legal perspective when he goes through this bill. But what I'm picking up from this is a way for the state to make money off of firearm owners. So it's currently difficult to get firearm liability insurance in the state of Washington. So creating this certificate of deposit registry holding through the Department of Licensing would solve the problem, and the state would benefit. And it would also create a registry of sorts of who has firearms, how many firearms they have, because you would have to have one for each firearm you own. The state would create a firearm financial responsibility account within the state treasury where they would manage the deposits and payments related to the financial responsibility requirements. So again, this is a huge data collection and also a little bit of a money trail thing going on here. Now, if you've been paying attention to Washington legislation as it pertains to the Second Amendment and firearms over the last couple of sessions, you are probably well aware of the number of different laws that have been enacted to disarm the citizens of Washington state. All of these are unconstitutional, and people always say whenever they hear about legislation that's being proposed or that gets passed, they always say, well, the courts are going to overturn it. Well, there's going to be lawsuits. Okay, so first of all, the courts in Washington are captured. Most of these courts are appointed by Democrat politicians over the last several decades. So you have that issue, and we've seen that with a number of these cases that have gone through Washington state courts and the superior courts in Washington as well. You also have to determine, who's going to bring the lawsuit? Who's going to fund the lawsuit? How is this all, this is going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of time. So the idea that we're just going to let the court overturn this is that doesn't really help you, the firearm owner, in the short term. Now, we moved out of Washington state in the summer of 2023, and that was right after House Bill 1240, which is the assault weapons ban, had passed in Washington. So all of the gun stores had to clear out their inventory and what they had in their showrooms, and it was very sad, actually. And then when we come down here to Florida, you go into a gun store or you go to a gun show, and they have gun shows, it seems like once a month. They're huge gun shows. Um, there's all kinds of, you have access to everything that you can't get in Washington. Washington maybe has like 25% of what you would find in a gun store in a free state. So you're really limited by these laws that have been enacted. I mean, look at the magazine ban. I think that was passed in 2022. Well, that's still, tied up in courts. You're still limited what you can purchase in the state of Washington. And let's face it, it's not reasonable for most people to go out of the state of Washington to purchase things like magazines and ammo. So this just doesn't make sense. And yeah, it's unconstitutional, but Washington state legislators, primarily the Democrats, they don't care about constitutional laws. They've been passing unconstitutional laws for a long, long time, and the citizens of Washington are having to live under those laws. Now, I want to connect this bill to a couple other anti-2A bills that are in Olympia right now. And both, actually all three of the bills that I'm going to tell you about had hearings already this week. It's week 2 of Washington's legislative session. So House Bill 1163 requires a permit to purchase a firearm. This bill is a returning bill under a new number from previous sessions. What this bill would do is it would require firearms training, including live fire training. It updates the requirement for CPL holders, and there's a lot of permit fees and things like that. So you think about how this would work. You want to purchase your first firearm, and so you have to jump through all of these hoops to be able to do that. You have to do the training, the live fire training. You have to do the permitting process. You have to be approved to purchase the firearm. All of this is going to take a lot of time and a lot of money. So let's say that I was a single mom for 10 years. So if I backtrack to my single mom days, I don't know if I would have been able to satisfy their requirements and had the training with whoever they deem is appropriate to get my permit. Obviously, training is critical. You are not a responsible gun owner if you are not doing training and practicing safety and learning all of this stuff. So I don't have a problem with the training, but making that a requirement to practice a constitutional right, that's where I have a problem. We also have House Bill 1152, which establishes new storage requirements for firearms inside of homes and inside of vehicles. This bill is again going to require a lot of extra expense for people. The requirements for this are pretty strict. Bill Kirk has done a video on this over at Washington Gun Law, and I'm going to link that up in the description for you so you can go watch his take on that. He broke down the whole bill and the issues with that bill. So again, you've got more expense. And then we've got House Bill 1386 that would be a tax on firearms, firearm parts, and ammunition, a tax of 11% on top of all the other taxes. So here you are, a first-time gun owner. You want to go buy your first firearm. You've got to jump through all these hoops. You've got to get the permit. You've got to do the live fire training. You've got to have all the storage requirements. You're going to have the extra expense. They're not making it cheap for you to buy a firearm. So you're going to have all of these expenses and time and stuff going in. And now with this new bill, House Bill 1405, you also are going to have to take out an insurance policy or get a CD that will be held with Washington's Department of Licensing in order to own a firearm, in order to practice a constitutional right. The irony here is how Democrats are always talking about how, they have to create equity and reduce disparities and, help marginalized communities. Well, who is this bill going to hurt the most? Well, it's not the average middle-aged white guy that's got a decent job and can find a way to get around these severe nuisances, but he'll figure it out. And he probably already has a firearm. It is the single mom or somebody who's on limited or fixed income that doesn't have the excess income to pay for all of these things. But the Democrats, they don't actually care about that. They care about their agenda. They care about disarming law-abiding citizens. As they disarm law-abiding citizens, they've got a ton of other bills to make life easier for criminals in Washington. So this is another bad bill. And I often wonder, when do people just say, I'm fed up, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not going to fund this state and their communist agenda. So as with most sessions, the Washington Democrats dump a bunch of citizen disarmament legislation A few of them get through, most of them don't. Now, anything that doesn't get through this year will carry over into the next session. I would anticipate that probably 3 or 4 of these bills that they've filed so far this year will actually pass through this session. I don't know which ones those will be. I think this one, this insurance one, could be one of the ones that gets passed. But they're definitely going to pass some laws that are going to make it more difficult for you to practice your constitutional right of owning a firearm. I'll have all the links to the bills that I've talked about today. I will also have a link to our Substack. If you haven't signed up for our Substack yet, that's the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action. They'll be delivered right to your inbox. And if you haven't already, be sure that you are subscribed to the channel and be sure to turn on those notifications because many of our alerts will be time sensitive as we continue to move throughout 2025 and have a lot of legislation going on in Washington and other states as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for engaging. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.